Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. And today we have a really interesting episode in that it's not some of our typical technology stuff, but stuff that really addresses the informal sector or in the informal market, not just in Africa, but really on a global level where there are interesting ways in which you can address this market, reach this market, service this market. And our guest today is going to really take us into it. And for me, I think when you look at his experience and his background, there's so much in what he brings to this conversation that I think has been assembled over decades that I think is going to be useful and helpful to all of us. So his name is Farayi Ziswa. He's a Zimbabwean-born business strategist, sales transformation leader, and entrepreneur with over 27 years of experience across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. He started his career in the 90s at Unilever in the UK and their international management training program before rising through the ranks and becoming a national sales manager for Unilever South-East Africa, where he also managed modern trade customers representing 65% of the business's revenue, which is a remarkable outcome if you look at it from any angle. From there, Farayi moved to the hospitality sector as a group sales manager for African Sun Group Hotel, and he consolidated the central reservation office for 18 five-star hotels across Southern Africa. He then served as the marketing and procurement director at SPAR retail chain in Zimbabwe, reporting to the board and the C-suite, and his responsibility was ensuring franchisee profitability and product availability across 174 stores nationally. He then came to the Middle East, where he spent 5 years in Dubai and the GCC as a regional trade marketing manager for SIT distribution, and then also driving route to market strategies for brands including HEC and Heineken, and pioneering for the first time in that region mobile real-time reporting using PDA devices. Maybe as old as me, but PDA devices are really the precursor to our modern smartphone, and of course they were using them as early as then. Since 2010, Farayi has been the founder and executive director of BTL Consulting Limited, a regional advisory firm that has helped multinationals and SMEs, including BAT, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Kim Fay, and also Cadbury and Byline, make their products more available in informal markets, which is really where he spent a lot of time in the last decade or so. He's helping these organizations be more available in informal markets using mobile technology and also modern sales strategies. Through BTL's work, over 2,000 young people and women have been formally trained and employed across East Africa. He is the founding advisor and shareholder of Copia Global, which you must know about in Kenya, which started in 2013. And he was recalled in 2021 to set up the farming division across Kenya and Uganda, and an innovation that won the International Marketplace Award for direct-to-consumer service for the year 2022. He was then promoted to vice president for merchandise, heading procurement and category management. He also co-owned and led Farm Shop, the agrovet franchise retail chain, investing over $2.4 million to operate more than 120 stores across Kenya, which is really impressive, and then aggregating produce from 34,000 small-scale farmers, if you can imagine that, through this particular platform. He's also the co-founder of Mapepa Karatasi in Tanzania, a sustainable manufacturing venture turning sisal agri-waste into paper products through community value chains. He's the founder of Inheritege Coaches, focused on generational succession and executive coaching, and he's also the author of Selling Informal Markets, this book over here that we'll talk about, and a practical blueprint that's now used by corporates, entrepreneurs, and training institutions across the continent. He's also served on boards including his family's 460-hectare commercial farm in Zimbabwe, Pet Store Kenya, Loki Ventures, and he holds an MBA in financial management from the University of Hull, and also a BA in honors in business accounting from the same institution. In short, if you want to understand how products actually move through Africa, not the glossy version, or what I like to call the Kadogo economies, mobile-led field reporting, Dukas, kiosks, and the daily rhythm of the informal trader, Farayi is the guy you need to look at because his career has been spent really leading up until this moment. Farayi, thank you so much for joining us on the Pure Digital Passion Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, Farayi, I always like to start off with understanding the origin story, where you come from, Zimbabwe, growing up, and sort of really trying to understand the journey that brings you to where you are today. And I'd just like to get a sense of your time in Zimbabwe, Hull University, which in my experience is an incredible place for rugby, if I remember correctly. Hull was one of the best, rugby league teams over the years. But tell us a little bit about, Zimbabwe time and how you end up at Hull University.
Yeah. So it's starting at a very early age, probably about 13. My parents invested in a farm, which is currently still operational.
Uh-huh.
And probably I was about 13 years old. I'd already started doing the administration for the farm.
Okay. Had they been working professionals before that?
They were working professionals, and they continued to be working professionals.
Okay.
But at a very early age, we were brought into the economy of running the farm.
Fantastic.
So, if we were to do planting, we were managing the planting, we were actually participating. Because it was a commercial farm, we would recruit quite a number of people. And probably by about 13, 14, when it came to paying salaries or whatever, I would be front and center doing the maths, putting the money together,
Wow.
paying the payrolls. And I think probably around 14, I remember one time being asked, because my parents were busy, they were saying, well, we finished harvesting, let's pay the guys. And then can you make sure that everyone leaves the farm because we finished harvesting? So, I had to do redundancy payments. But it was all lessons and learnings.
Yes.
Nothing bad at all. We were doing that, and we were equally, we opened a little shop on the side. So as we were paying people, there would be a little shop on the side, and we would be selling groceries to the people, to the farm employees.
A circular economy.
A circular economy suddenly developed. And I remember at the farm compound where people were living, we opened at one point like a beer hall.
Okay.
And we would have musicians come, and they would perform during the weekends.
Full ecosystem. Huh?
But as they were doing that, I would be sitting in the middle of this place, trading and selling and doing everything within that circular economy. It started early, but as I think by the time I was 16, I got my driver's license, and now I was actually driving and actually facilitating and doing all these things. And this was while I was also still going to school. So I was pretty active at a young age. But when I finished high school, I really kind of was like, nah, do I really want to be doing this? And it was an inspired visit by this network of conference universities that had this advertisement. And I said, let me just go listen. So I went there and I listened, and they were saying, come and learn in the UK, and you will do this and you will do that. And it was one of those, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go to this, and I want to do my degree from there. So I went and asked my parents, and they said, yeah, sure, no problem. If that's what you want to do. My father had always said, you have to build your own legacy. Whatever you do, build your own legacy. And he always insisted that for education first. So that idea was go. And so, big chunk of money, I think, I can't remember how many thousands that I was given, plus an acceptance letter. That's all I had. And I got in a plane and I went off to the UK. Then it was easy at immigration. Everything was processed so easily, so quickly. I was like a 19-year-old kid, literally landed in the UK and just suddenly found myself.
What was that like? I mean, coming from Africa, I had the privilege of being to Zimbabwe, beautiful country, beautiful people, loved the Sadza.
Yeah.
And what was that feeling like? Just that transition for you?
It was surreal. I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So, the euphoria, I was so used to running operations, and I was so used to running things and managing things, getting busy. And now suddenly I was in the UK, and there were so many lessons that suddenly crept up. For example, I'd never really learned how to budget. I'd learned to be given money and allocate and do all these things. But now I had to manage my own funds, and I had to budget and plan for a year and things like that. And as a 19-year-old, I'd never really been involved. I was one of those types that just would say, hey, I need this. And I'd get.
I get, yes.
And so within 6 months, I crashed because
Whoa.
I'd blasted through the money.
Having good times?
Yeah, partially, partially. Plus, it was very expensive, and I realized I needed to find a job. And so my colleagues who were with me at the time became my brothers and basically gave me a lot of counsel and helped me to now actually start learning to be a man and actually say, okay, I need to earn money and I need to budget and do this and that. And I remember calling home and saying, guys, I've run out. I need money. And the response was, yeah, we don't have any.
You got to sort yourself out.
Sort yourself out.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, what do you mean sort myself out? And that conversation took me about 2 days to process. And then I realized I have to
Get on with it, yeah?
And so that became the transformation, from just being this kid to actually saying, okay, I need to man up here. And UK was difficult in the beginning.
Yeah.
But initially, I tried several jobs. This is while I'm still going to school. So I'm going to school and I'm trying out for these jobs. And then at some point I found, because I'd been, I had a disabled brother, so I'd been looking after him quite a bit.
Back home.
Yeah, back home. And when I tried out nursing, a nursing home, they said, we will train you, but you have to be trained on the job. And when you're certified, then we'll pay you properly and whatever. But I literally worked for free for about 6 weeks until I could get the certification for care nursing. And I just did that. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I was exceptionally good at it.
In hindsight, you had the benefit.
Because I had the experience from looking after my brother. And so in that regard, once I got the job, the agency that had posted me actually gave me opportunities to work. And one thing led to another. I became a full grade nurse.
No way.
Well, not a full grade. I became grade 3 nurse, but grade 4 was full grade. I became a nurse while I was actually studying to do finance.
And you're doing this at night, or what is the frequency? I would take
shifts based on my timetable with the university. So as long as the university would say, let's say you need to be in class between 8 o'clock and 1 o'clock, I'll take a shift from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
And it's like a daily thing?
Pretty much almost daily.
Wow. And basically at this point in time, presumably you're basically earning money to stay alive, right?
To stay alive. It became to stay alive, and also now to just, pay my fees for the university.
So you're also paying for the fees as well?
At some point, I ended up having to do that. But it was a learning stage, and 3 years down the line, quite a big transformation had become of me. I was quite responsible. I was starting to understand, what needed to be done for me to complete my degree and then move from there. So I ended up with a degree in business finance. Business accounting.
Yes.
And I carried on and ended up also going for a master's degree.
But essentially back to back.
Yeah, not entirely. There was a bit of a gap where I had to work a bit.
Okay.
But once I got my degree, I then started moving away from nursing and started moving into finance.
Proper, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the moment I completed my master's, I went into now saying, okay, nursing, I love it. It's natural for me. By the time I was graduating for my degree, I was actually a theater nurse.
No way.
And,
wow.
Specializing in orthopedics. So I'd actually been having a secondary career that had developed from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
That had developed, and I was loving it actually. But I just said, look, I've really worked hard, gotten myself to be a finance person. I really want to go into business. I really want to go into finance. I still had that dream of all the things that I had learned from youth, running businesses and all that. So I kind of knew that leaving nursing was going to be the thing I had to do. So,
Ultimately,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
But it served its purpose for the time that you had to do it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And I still cherish the time that I went through that. And it ended up being quite weird that everything I did was with Hull University. Participating in, at the time, Hull Football Club, for example, was
the legendary, yeah.
it was nothing. It was like I can't. I think they would even come to the university and ask for people to come and play because they didn't have enough players sometimes. So we would go with our sneakers and whatever, and just play for the heck of it.
Wow.
Later on, investors came into the club and made it big, but brought it back to prominence. But at that point, in those years,
it wasn't a major thing at that point.
Wasn't a major thing.
Yeah.
The big thing was the rugby.
The rugby league, you guys were like champions back to back, back to back. I remember that. Yeah, I was a rugby guy, so that's why I know.
So that was a good, beautiful season. And I cherish, the ups and downs that came with being in Europe, working in Europe. The lessons learned. It was not easy. But I think it really did transform a measure of you got to stand up.
Well, you went from being a boy to a man essentially in that time, and taking care of yourself and finding your way in the world, I suppose. Brilliant. So let's talk a little bit about what happens next. I believe you go to Unilever from university, right? Tell us about how you get into the program, because again, I know that's something of an elite thing. I mean, Unilever is one of the most iconic corporations globally, one of the biggest multinationals. I'm sure getting in was not a cakewalk.
No.
But also, what was that like? I'm sure, like, in terms of understanding consumer markets, branding, how things get to market, must be one of the foundational pieces to who you are today, I imagine.
Yeah. So they actually were going to the university. So they actually came to the university.
Yeah.
And they did a pitch to everybody, and I applied, and by God's grace, I actually got selected. But the interview process was a rigorous one, very rigorous. And I remember it was done in London, and we had all sorts of leaders, PhD guys and whatever.
Wow.
And you had to be interviewed over a period of about 3 days. And managed to get the role as a management trainee. And their management training program was a 2-year program. And this is, I think, one of the things I always encourage, even if you want to be an entrepreneur, learn how to run a business as a whole, but don't do it just randomly by yourself. You're going to make many missteps. From a corporation perspective, I learned how to, that management training program took me from, one department to the next, HR, finance, manufacturing. We went through every single department, and each one you were given tasks, and you had to complete the tasks, and you had to navigate your way around each and every process. And if you're not successful, you're kicked out of the program. So it wasn't an easy program. And midway through that program, I got hijacked from the UK.
Yeah.
And because the Zimbabwe was going through a transformation at the time, and hyperinflation was starting to kick in.
I remember.
And so the CEO was the chairman was in the UK, and heard that there was a Zimbabwean guy who was treasury. And said, "Why are you keeping a treasury guy from Zimbabwe?
Bring him back home.
I need him here."
What?
And so that's how I ended up being dragged back to Zimbabwe. Well, I obviously accepted the
opportunity. Yeah.
I ended up in Zimbabwe and became a management trainee in Zimbabwe and finished my training there. So that's actually how I went back to Zimbabwe. And funny enough, as I arrived in Zimbabwe and I'm going through that management training program, I started heading also the treasury department, finance and treasury department. I started heading the treasury. Became an assistant manager for treasury.
Okay.
Looking at collections. And it was while I was working the collections that my mentor actually saw the collections that I was doing. In a hyperinflationary environment, I was actually collecting quite a bit.
Oh.
So he saw the success and said, "Listen, why are you in?"
Where are you collecting from?
So we were
the distributors, the retailers,
all Unilever customers.
Yes.
And it was Unilever Zimbabwe at that time. All the customers, the collection of that, yes, physically, sometimes it was the reps who were collecting, but the coordination of that was through treasury. And so the strategies for collecting were what I developed. How to make sure that in a hyperinflationary environment, how do we make customers pay on time? Or even better, because it's hyperinflation, you want the money earlier before inflation eats into the money. So the idea, the strategy was collect as quickly as possible. And so I created a model where we could offer incentives for paying earlier. And so the company's cash flows just blossomed because we were collecting ahead of schedule. But it got the notice of the sales guys, of the sales department, who then said, yeah, you're talking to the customers and they're listening to you. And that means more than anything else, you're actually a salesman. And I didn't get that at first, but a lot of persuasion went into it. And then I was actually persuaded to move from accounting and treasury to sales, which first few comments, you always think, oh man, sales.
Sales has a bad rap.
It has a bad rap. It has a very bad rap. But that's exactly what happened. I then transformed from treasury to go to sales. And the big argument was sales is not about the razzmatazz. It's not about the gift of the gab and the smooth talker. No. Sales is actually the first line in a profit and loss statement. It's actually the most important line because it's the one that actually brings you revenue. The higher your sales, the more you can spend. The less your sales, the less you can spend. Every other department spends. It's money out. Sales is the one that brings the money in.
I mean, I came through the sales background as well in the technology space, internet and all, but we had a certain pride as well where we knew that all the technology guys, the guys running the servers, the guys doing everything else, nothing happens until we sell.
Yes, exactly. And that is the reality of life. You're not going to get very far if you're not bringing the sales. And this, if you go typical old school sales, it was gift of the gab, and it was full of, okay, I'll give you a
negative connotations.
I'll give you a discount. I'll give you this. I'll give you something so that you give me the sales. But we moved from that to what I call channel and category management, where we're actually strategically talking about, you are a retailer, you are someone who wants to sell a product. I've got a product. This is how much I want you to sell. And for that, I'll give you this, and I would give you a strategic plan for a year. And in that, I'll give you all the numbers that strategically show you how you will benefit from my product over the next 2, nowadays we call them joint business plans, JBPs. But that's exactly where you come from when you're talking channel management and category management.
It's collaborative, yeah?
It's collaborative. And in those days, that's where we were bringing that into concept and starting to have those conversations and saying, okay, if you give me this volume, I'll give you this margin, and I'll give you this incentive, and I'll give you that, and I'll give you that. And we agreed over a year. And then once it's done, it's just execution. The team now go and just execute. And if we're off, it's easy to see where the blueprint is and say, why are we off? Let's go back to square. And it works in modern trade very well. But we also started introducing it into informal trade. And that's where I started getting into informal markets, because we started looking at informal markets not as 10 or 100,000 little kiosks and dukas all over the place, but actually saying, no. These are structured. Let's take these groups and let's treat them in this way. Let's take these groups and treat them in this way. And then you actually build a model for each and every one of them and give them the product to work with under the terms that you've set. And you find it becomes one supermarket, one when you aggregate their performance, it's one supermarket. So you move away from just saying take the product, give it to a wholesaler, and not knowing where the wholesaler puts the product. You're completely clueless where the product went, how it went there, who bought, why did they buy, what makes them buy.
There's no insight.
There's no insight when you go to a wholesaler. But when you actually go straight to the kiosk and the duka, you actually now start getting to speak to them and say, I'm selling you this product. And then they tell you, this product, people don't like this. It's harsh on your hands. This product is like this. And you're now getting direct insight from the person who's talking to the consumer.
I'd almost call it like the real world version of social media in a way, because in terms of the feedback loop, it's so direct, it's so tangible in a way that maybe when you're working through these other channels, you don't really have that visibility or sense. But now you're speaking to these guys one by one through your sales reps and so forth, so that they're giving you a true picture of the market, or what you like to say in Kenya, qua ground.
Yes. Yeah. You're actually qua ground. And when you add it together with technology,
it gets amazing.
PDAs or the apps that we're now using that go into the market and you input the results, you have real-time trends. You can see what your competitor is doing before they've actually fully rolled out what they're doing. You can see where a market is absolutely loving. I mean, I remember a client of ours that we were working with. We took their sachet product and put it into the market, and it started selling. And we couldn't understand why the product itself was doing so well in like beer halls. And we're thinking, what is going on? Why is this product selling so well in these areas? And that allowed us immediately to go ask around the shops and say, what's going on? And there were people who were like, yeah, this product is very good. People like adding it to their beer. And it gives them a boost. And we're like, oh.
And that wasn't the original use case, right?
It was absolutely not the used case for the product. But, we're salespeople. We said, double the volumes to that area.
Do you think it's amazing that the consumer or the person who touches the consumer directly has these profound perspectives that can even inform product strategy going forward, so that you create something with this intention, and then with this feedback, you're like, okay, how do we repackage or reposition based on what the market is already telling us?
Yes.
Don't fight it, run with it.
Run with it. Exactly. You're always, and I always say, informal markets are like a river that flows in a certain way. So, don't fight the current. If you try and fight the current, you'll be kicked out of it, or you'll drown. Right? Know what's happening, see the flow, and go with the flow. So if one of our clients, we were selling diapers, and we could see people opening the packets and taking piece by piece. And we said, no, look, fine, they're selling piece by piece. And the market thinks that that's normal, that's okay. But if you really think about it, as an African, I'm proud. I don't want to have my child wearing a diaper that has been handled by dirty hands. The idea that informal markets or, these areas are cheap and they're poor is total fallacy. They have, a person who has no money is actually the person who understands the true value of money, because they know that when they take a drop of oil and it's useless, it's not gonna, and it's a poor quality product. They know that that oil is not gonna really complete the meal that they need to cook. So they will go for the premium product, but they will take a tablespoon of it just for that meal, because they know the value of the product. So what you've got to do is make sure you provide them with value, but put it at a price point that's like
and an SKU that matters.
at a price point that they can afford. And that's where the Kadogo packs come. Because you're saying, I'll give you the highest quality value I can give you, but I'll give you at a measure that is, so you may have those big packs that you sell in modern trade, but I can guarantee you at Informal Market and Kadogo packs, I probably will sell much more volume overall using those tiny little things than I would with the big packs that are sold in modern trade. But if you don't look at it that way, you'll always be putting 80% of your attention to the modern trade and thinking, yeah, there's no opportunity in informal markets. Absolutely not. There is.
And I think in Africa, this dynamic exists in so many dimensions. Like I've written about it from a technology perspective. Like you get service providers, like let's say poor internet, right? They operate in underserved markets for internet access. They have a product that you can pay for on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
You come to the Safaricoms and the Airtels, they've got products where you can pay for an hour of internet, half a day of internet, a full day of internet.
Yeah.
You pay as you need. And you see this dynamic. Even the other day, I remember I wrote about it online and it got quite a bit of traction, I think on LinkedIn, was when I saw these chewing gum packs where you could now buy a single tablet as opposed to the 4-pack, the 4 tablets, so that you can buy this singular, you can still have the joy of a chewing gum after a meal at, like 20 cents or 50 cents, whatever it is, in a way that most people then can afford.
Yeah.
And I think the sheer scale of this to me becomes very apparent when I think about a few years ago with SportPesa. Gambling business, probably sports betting rather, 3 million customers, each one spending maybe 50 shillings a day. That trickle up effect allowed them to sponsor, Premier League teams and a Formula One team and create global notoriety as a brand from essentially the bottom of the pyramid in Africa.
Precisely.
So the real size of that market is incredible.
Yeah. If to put it into context, imagine if you could get just 1,000 outlets.
Yes.
If I went to Embakasi, Umoja, there's significantly more than 1,000 outlets. So an average rep would be able to cover 300 outlets. I'm just giving an example.
Yes.
So Embakasi, I could put, let's say, 3 sales reps. Just imagine 1,000 outlets, and each outlet transacted 1,000 bob. Just bought 1,000 bob of your product, right? That's already about what, 100,000 that I'm getting into my pocket, right? So it's 1,000 outlets, and I got 100 and 1,000, and I've got 1,000 per outlet.
Yes.
Yeah, getting about 100 bob, right? 100,000.
The numbers add up.
The numbers add up. So I'm getting the multiplication effect of having outlets is outrageous when you go to an outlet, to an area like Embakasi, and you just get 1,000, and with three reps giving you those outlets, giving you those transactions, and it's in 1 week. Visit those over 4 weeks. Again, that's multiplication, right? So Safaricom and all these technology companies have realized that it's not if I give you just 1 hour of transaction, you can go to SportsPesa, you can go to do a podcast.
Yes.
You can do your transaction for an hour.
Yes.
Post it, and in that posting, you've already generated your income. Then you can be sitting back with nothing, with no internet. But you've done your posting, and you just paid 50 bob for the internet just to be able to send your transmission. When you next have your next income, you can see the results of that little post that you did,
Yes.
that it now suddenly comes back, but you only spent 50 bob in terms of you had your phone, you recorded yourself for free, but 50 bob was just to send it.
Correct. At that moment of need.
Exactly, at that moment of need. And that is what the Kidogo culture is all about. And that's what the informal market is all about. It's about making sure everything is available for that moment of need and getting the transmission done.
And then, of course, when you think that the majority of the consumers live and operate at that level, the sheer scale, the size, what I'd call the velocity of that market is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, with Nairobi, Kenya as a whole, let's we can estimate and project as much as we like, but let's just assume there's 200,000 retail outlets in the informal market. That's if you can just capture all of those outlets and just do 1,000 in transaction, right? That's how much you're gonna get back. But not just that. There's the question of financing. Most of these retail stores don't have financing enough to be able to hold significant amount of stock. But just because, and they don't have collateral to take a loan against whatever they're doing business-wise. But if you can track what they're doing performance-wise, you can actually lend to them based on the performance of their sales, projected predictive sales. And you can actually lend to them with full knowledge that they're going to give back because you can see their trend of performance. So digitizing the economy itself has become a major priority. And the companies that have really done well, Twiga, Copia, that have done well in the market, Jumia, I don't know about Jumia, but the ones that have been able to digitize that economy, including Coca-Cola. You've never seen a Coca-Cola fridge that's empty. Nestle and all the ones that have been able to digitize the informal market have actually been able then to do other things like sell on credit to the market. And that has allowed new opportunities, new markets, new income streams as well, because you are now earning interest. From look at Fuliza and how many trillions it's making for the banks. Just because you're able to go to that informal market, it changes everything about what the opportunity is across Africa.
So I want us to zoom into maybe specific moments that start to inform the thinking. I think you've talked about what happened in Zimbabwe. I don't know specifically with Unilever. I don't know whether there's anything that sort of speaks to informal markets. I doubt this happened at African Sun because this is a completely hospitality business, unless there's something you picked up there as well that aligns to this.
Not really.
And then we had the SPAR franchise model. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So when franchising is one of the biggest opportunities. When you look at stages of development of economies.
Yes.
Every economy starts, every community starts with informality. Doesn't matter if it's Europe, doesn't matter in America, wherever it is, every community starts with informality. And it starts with just a group of people just coming together. And when they're coming together, they start converging based on necessities. And as the community grows,
trade essentially,
trade happens, fundis come in, and there are reasons why communities come together. But what you find is once the community has developed and the quality of life improves, you start having a transformation from the informality and the guys, the hawkers, the kiosks. You start having bigger supermarkets. And from the bigger supermarkets, you start having branded conglomerates starting to develop. So you can go from, the beginning, which is just absolutely informal market, to a median level where I would say Kenya is in that median level. at the moment, where you're starting to see so many malls, and you're starting to
Yes.
see brands, international brands coming in and establishing themselves.
Building their chains out. Yeah.
Chains are suddenly, chains are everywhere for every industry. That's a developmental level. And then you find the advanced level where we now see, some of the European markets and that kind of thing. That's where you're now developed fully. And franchising is part of that middle section where small supermarkets are sitting and saying, I really want to become bigger and I really want to become better, but how do I do it? I don't know how to do it. And then comes this partner who has got a system, who has got structure, who has got a brand, and says, I will buy in bulk on behalf of all of you if you all combine and become part of me. And so they all sign up, and that's where SPAR came in, because, for example, it's international. It's one of the biggest retail chains in the world. But franchise, little small stores that have come and said, I want to become a SPAR retailer. So in Zimbabwe, we had 175, I can't remember quite the exact number, retail outlets, and all of them were buying centrally from a head office. So there was one central buyer and one central distributor, and they just have to run their stores in a certain way, in a certain manner, using a certain system. And that's actually the next level of modernization. So you no longer have all these retail chains that are just sitting there called mom and pop, ABC, You now have independent stores, but branded. And the suppliers who supply to those stores are now beholden to one head office that buys on behalf of, so they're protected.
Correct.
So that's where SPAR was. And,
Okay.
and I headed the procurement and marketing.
Okay.
And that was another lesson in managing informal markets, but more out of now partnering with the retailers and creating a structure that actually, and I believe right now as we look at things, some of the pharmaceutical companies in Kenya are actually more or less some of them are franchise modeling. Some of the fuel stations,
of course, yes, yeah,
our franchise model. We haven't really seen it in the retail consumer goods world
yet, yeah.
But I think it's coming.
Because right now they're all fully owned, as it were, right?
They're independently owned or fully owned.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can see a situation where franchising will kick in.
Okay.
And that's as much as moving towards now more of a modern, structured economy for retail.
Okay. So there's still a lot of ground to cover. So I want us to go kind of succinctly into each moment.
Yeah.
Dubai, you move from Zimbabwe, SPAR, you go to Dubai. What's that like? What's happening there? What are some of the takeaways that you pick up around the consumer side of getting products to market there?
Yeah. So Dubai was a transition. And it was a very interesting transition. I went, that was my first step into consulting. And had to go and pitch to several clients, lost a lot of pitch opportunities.
Wow.
But struck gold with, first and foremost, Heineken.
Okay.
In the Middle East, you'd expect alcohol is not that big. But yeah, for the places where alcohol was sold, alcohol was just alcohol. And people, when they saw it, they just drank it. So there was no
differentiation of brand,
no differentiation of branding. And we had a client, Heineken, who said we want to actually create a differentiation. So we created a serving methodology that we incentivized and sold as a serving methodology. And then we had so we said, let's serve in a certain way. Serve the alcohol, serve the Heineken in a specific way that was very, place the mat here, do this, twist, do this, step by step. And in doing so, we then put mystery shoppers to go in and offer rewards for anyone who was in the bartending world who served in that way. And so if you served in that way, you got lots of incentives. But what it did, it made the consumer say, why did you serve me that one by just going, poof, you know? And why did you serve me that one by going, process this, that, you know, there must be something special with this one. And that's exactly what we.
So now you're really elevating the positioning of the product.
We elevated the positioning, and it actually became recognized as a premium product because of how it was served. That was the first, and then there came now the HTC brand, and they were just
the mobile devices.
Yeah, the mobile devices, and they were just coming in with tablets and that kind of thing, and that was to go out and redistribute the brand and create HTC care centers, and to also teach people, because tablets at that point, you know, we look at, you know, Nokia was the king at that time.
I remember.
With their keypads and everything. And this was like the screen. And you're saying, guys, this is the future. So we had to have a whole team of people to teach how to use the device, how to make it work, and that kind of thing. So managing that, and that was a very interesting, you know, time as a consultant, having to present, having to learn how to get clients to understand where we are, presenting what we have achieved, dealing with objections, that kind of thing. That was my first foray in consulting, and I learned a lot, lost a lot.
But, baptism by fire.
No, it was baptism by fire. But it was a learning curve that got me to be able to put together my future in Kenya in such a way that when we created the organization BTL in Kenya,
yes,
I had a much better blueprint of how to do things, how to speak to how to speak to potential clients, and how to set things up.
It's around 2006, right?
It's about 2010.
Oh, 2010.
2006 or so was Middle East.
Yeah.
But 2010 was Kenya.
So let's talk a little bit about Kenya, because we're sort of getting to the point where we need to sort of get into the detail now around how the informal markets piece sort of becomes into sharper focus now with what you're doing in Kenya. Can you tell us about that trajectory with BTL and the work of modernizing informal trade? Yeah, how does that come into play?
So I knew that I always knew that I needed to do something in that world.
Even as you're having these different forays.
Even as I was doing all these things, I was starting to piece together my lessons. You know, how to set up an organization, how to make sure that the organization is solid,
correct,
to build a foundation. And so when it came to coming to BTL, I knew that I wanted to formalize the informal market. And those days, Kenya, if I went to the supermarkets and East Africa as a whole, if I went to a kiosk, majority of them kiosk owners would go to a wholesaler, buy, go back. So they would have downtime where they're having to shut the retail outlet, go and buy the product that they want. And then the product that they listed in their stores was usually the product that was most popular or was advertised or had a billboard or a TV advert or something like that. But if you were number 3, number 4 supplier, you know, if your brand was number 3 or number 4 in demand, you pretty much didn't have a chance to be in a kiosk. Your best bet was to be in, at the time, Uchumi or Nakumat, for that matter, or Tuskys. But you couldn't have a chance in kiosks. So that was my plan. Go to number 2s, number 3s, number 4s, and say to them, hey, do you want to be number 1? I can get you into a kiosk. What I will do is I will bring your product to the kiosk. So BTL introduced foot sales reps. So we would have people who actually picked up product from a specific point that we would create. And
a distribution hub of some kind.
Yes, and then redistribute the product into the kiosks. So we did that for a number of clients, and we ended up getting big. The first people that actually we worked with actually tended to be the multinationals. They're the ones who saw the opportunity.
I see the BAT, Nestle, Coca-Cola.
They saw the opportunity and they were like, yeah, why not use you to do what we have been trying to do but failing. So we ended up being their distributor.
Essentially, yeah.
Essentially,
Okay.
into the informal retail by walking into the retail stores, putting the product, actually merchandising the product, and sending pictures of the product displayed and merchandised in all sorts of manner of retail kiosks, tabletops, tabletops and small hawker stations. So we were just putting stock and coming back with cash.
Wow.
And at a certain point, some of these guys were making more cash than they were from the modern trade.
Wow.
But the problem there was BTL became a glorified HR company.
Oh, I know that you had something about 2,000 people at some point.
We didn't. Well, that was the total number of people
Over
probably
time, huh?
over time that we were training or whatever. I think
Yes.
some clients were like 50 sales reps. Some clients had 40. Some clients had 20. But so it just different numbers. But when you combine all the people that we trained and formalized into the economy, formalized into the national system of whatever, it was quite a lot of people. And the sales we were doing were not our sales. They were actually on behalf of the client. So,
correct.
We were just this HR thing that was just connecting them.
Yes.
And at a certain point, the downside of that is once they figure out how to do it, they say, okay, thank you very much.
And they get rid of you.
And they get rid of me and they get rid of us and they take over. So BTL really came in at a sweet spot where we transformed a good part of how product gets into the retail stores and formalized the informal market by bringing technology and tracking the sales and saying, okay, every single sale, every transaction you do, mark where the sale was, who you sold to, what you sold, how you sold.
It's coming from the reps, on the ground,
So the reps on the ground are giving you this feedback, and you've got this control tower where you can see where every transaction is, and you create this one supermarket where you can see every transaction on a daily basis. So if you've got 20 reps and each rep is visiting 20 stores, you've got 4,000 points of sale that give you a reference of transaction.
Fantastic. And all aggregated, visible.
Yeah, and value.
Geo-targeted, all that.
Exactly. So you also have got your GPS and you've geotagged the sale. And then you're also now, we moved to a point where we even started looking at the sale and sort of premeditating it, predicting it. So if we came to your store 3, 4, 5 times, and you ordered a certain quantity at a certain time,
yes,
we could now predict what your next move was. And because we can predict your next move, we don't have to really come to you. We just have to deliver to you.
Wow. So it's now the predictive analytics coming into play.
Yeah, even before AI came into the picture. And so that's kind of what we were doing. But doing it, as a consulting support for retail.
Fantastic.
And that's where the 2,000 or so people that we
over
trained,
time.
Yeah. And I'm always proud when I see all the guys that we worked with and whatever, and they're now working in all these big organizations.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah,
they came through the ranks. Huh?
Yeah. It's quite a few.
So time is really not on our side, but I would like us to maybe touch a little bit on your time with Copia, perhaps, because I think that sort of also starts to inform that. Mobile money, as you know, is kind of currency in this part of the world. M-Pesa, Farm Shop, and then I think I'd like us to conclude with the book.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what's been happening in this intermediate periods. Yeah.
So Copia came in through a contact. They were looking at, the founders were looking at how to get into rural. And I love the idea because everyone always focuses on
the cities and towns, yeah.
But this was a conversation about how do we get into rural, and the cost to serve in rural is significantly higher. Just thinking of the logistics.
Yes.
So they had a grand idea, and where I came in was I was part of the experimentation team.
Mm.
So I was looking at how we could do it and testing the different, helping to test the different ideas and concepts and that kind of thing. You know, we would go to the different markets, learn how one methodology would work, and go to another,
Yes.
try, and it didn't work, and another place where it worked, and another place where it didn't. And in so doing, we also then said, okay, let's bring technology in.
Mm.
And so we brought tracking of all the things that we were doing. We put a huge amount of technology effort into starting to track every step of the way that we were going. And in the process, that's how the Copia network developed and the Copia system developed. And over the years, I would just be involved advisory. But later on, they said they want to form a farming division.
Mm.
At that point, I was running a farm shop, which was another enterprise that I had pretty much
started from scratch as well.
I didn't start it from scratch, but I took over it more from a perspective of it was a very successful model.
Mm.
So I'd seen the opportunity of actually selling farming product inputs, you know, and input sales in Kenya at the time were something that's just done as a by the way, and there wasn't really that much effort with regards to, you know, later on we saw digital apps coming into farming input retail outlets, but at that point it was just random, you know.
It was
Agrovet runs this. It was very fragmented.
Yeah.
So Farm Shop was really trying to create a franchise model. It was actually a franchise model of selling agricultural inputs. I went in and I looked towards commercializing it. And in doing so, we created as a vehicle would go and drop inputs, when it was coming back from its route, we said, why is it coming back empty? Why doesn't it come back carrying agricultural
produce? Yes.
Wow. That someone has been producing? So we tried that, and it actually was very successful. But that was also affected by COVID at the time. And so from a financing and everything perspective, yeah, it fell apart. Because, you know, the lockdowns and everything around that was just pure drama.
Okay.
In terms of trying to run a business like that during COVID, you know, funny situations like my guys would be driving their van and they'll be stopped at a roadblock. They would have the licenses to travel, but they would, you know, they would have their temperatures checked. And just because they're sitting in a car,
they're warm, of course.
They're warm, and they'll be told sit on the side because you're heated up. So they have to sit on the side, and then, you know, when they're now being told we're taking you now to the COVID stations, they'll have another temperature check, and their temperature is normal.
These are just some of the weird logistical things that people like you...
be told, get back in your car, go, you can go.
And yet you're like an essential service, right?
And we've just lost an entire day of operation.
So COVID literally destroyed the business.
It destroyed the business.
Wow.
And so that's where Copia came in, because the conversation was Copia needed a farming division, and the concept of farming linked with Copia. And I already was advising Copia, so I just joined the Copia team. And in doing that, we created a farming division that literally supported the entire network of farming inputs for the Copia network. And that was a remarkable time, because we had amazing growth. And it's just unfortunate that, you know, can't get into why
the details,
Copia didn't then succeed in the end. But, you know, it was that time when you kind of looked at it and were like, you know what, this is a good egg. And I still believe that they developed the best of models to reach the rural networks. And I don't think I've seen anyone who's anywhere near developing a network and a model and a structure that can go to rural Africa the way they had done it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, sad story in the end, but amazing insights, amazing strategy, amazing implementation that came out of that season. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to cap it all off, your book, Selling
Yeah.
to Informal Markets, tell us about the inspiration, what's in this book, and, obviously where people can get it. I
Yeah.
think that's important. And I'd like to really, I know that we spoke a little bit earlier prior to this podcast about the book, but I want to sort of get a sense of what's in here, what's the value that it brings to those who might want to know more, and of course, how can they get it?
Yeah. So the book really was, so over the years, I was training. I remember I had a system where every month I believed every salesperson must be trained. So every month we would train on a topic, right from how to sell to how to write messages.
Oh, soft skills.
Don't
Yeah.
send me a message saying, "Sasa, I want to do."
Oh, hey.
No. I'm not your bro.
So just basic etiquette.
in the
yeah?
work front.
Yeah.
So we trained everything, even how to write emails. We trained on everything, anything and everything. And the lessons we taught, I had this whole draft of all these ideas. And at a certain point, I started getting to that stage where I was like, you know what? I'd write about it, and I'd be talking about it in little posts that I'd write and say, be like this, be like that. Don't be like this. Don't be like that. And one time it came to me, this, you know what? Why don't you compile it together? Combine it, create a book. And so therein started the inspiration to write the book. And it took a long time to finally put it together with insights and examples. And one of the things I had always noticed was when people come from universities, come from colleges, they go and they learn marketing, they learn accounting, they learn how to manufacture product. But guess what? They get into a company and they're told, yeah, you're coming in as a salesman, go and sell. Everyone assumes that selling is one of those things you just
It's a basic
naturally
thing,
know.
yeah.
Go and sell. No one comes with full experience of how to do selling. No one really teaches how to sell, and to sell commercially. I'm not talking, I can sell a car any day, but no one teaches you how to sell a repeatable process every week. So I was a bit frustrated with the fact that colleges always spew out all these kids and they know nothing about how to sell. So this was now taking an accumulation of lessons and putting it into a book. So the book is written speaking to entrepreneurs to say, if you are an entrepreneur and you want to have a national scale of selling your product, these are the things you need to think about. 80% of your volume can come from modern trade. Yes, but it's very expensive. You have to get 90 days credit in some instances. Do you really have 90 days to sit and wait for your money to come? Whereas the informal market has hundreds of thousands of stores and they'll pay you cash.
It's much more liquid.
It's much more liquid. So if you really want that cash, go to the informal market. But if you're going to do it, here are the tricks to do it. So it speaks first to the entrepreneur.
The blueprint, so to speak.
Blueprint of how to set yourself up to go to the informal market. And then the second part, it looks at the person who's actually a salesperson and says, listen, this is how you go and sell. So I wrote about the 8-minute selling steps. It's my own naming of it, but it's a process of selling that we went through in the company, following up on how people sold and seeing the successes and seeing how irritable the retailers got if you started dilly-dallying and taking your time and starting to want to chat and go beyond the 8 minutes. So, and then things like time management and talking about just the essence of how to sell. So it talks to the salesperson. And then it talks also to people who are invested in tech, to how you can unify data, how you can go into an informal market, take this and that outlet, combine them and form one, and the opportunities that are within it. And I strongly believe that there's an opportunity for informal markets across Africa to be one unified
data
shop,
set, as it were, or
data
shop.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as we speak right now, each and every supplier visits, you got 20, 30 suppliers visiting one retailer
It's all fragmented.
every single day. And each one has got their own database. And why can't there just be one database and one structured way of going to these retail outlets? And why can't we combine them, to say Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, it's just one party.
I'll give an interesting experience. I used to run an online marketplace called Dealfish with Naspers, who you must know, who own DSTV and all this, MultiChoice. And I remember we built and aggregated data on cars.
Yeah.
Because people could buy and sell cars on it. And one of the most interesting, profound insights would be that if you're trying to buy a model of 2002 Toyota Corolla and you put that in there, and this is amazing, the car could have been the same vehicle that came with its other vehicles of a similar spec.
Yeah.
But the best place to buy that car was actually in Maua in Kenya.
Exactly.
And all because of that, you would know that you could save 200,000-300,000 shillings for whatever reason, because maybe it's under the high street where they're paying rentals and all, but it's somewhere in some backwater in Maua, and it's the cheapest place to buy it.
And it costs a fraction of the cost
just
to go there.
And the data is aggregated. That's how you know the best place to buy cars is not in Kilimani and all, it's on Thika Road.
Yes.
Because the data is aggregated.
Yes.
And that is amazing. It's exactly what you're saying, isn't it?
And that's exactly it. I mean, aggregate all the retailers, put them together, transact with them in one format. And you're not complicating life for the retailer. You're not complicating life for the supplier. You're doing a national service, if I could call it.
Exactly.
Or an Africa, benefit overall, because you're bringing just one unified program. So the book speaks about that and the opportunity there. And so I wrote that book, launched it this year. It's available in Tanzania across all the retail outlets. It's just about to be fully available across Kenya, in all the retail stores. But there's also a website. It's on Amazon. So it's available online on Amazon. I can provide the contacts for that. All you have to type is selling to informal markets.
Selling to informal markets.
So if you just type selling to informal markets, you'll see it on Amazon.
Fantastic.
And it's available at pretty discounted price. That's where I tend to speak, about the product and yes, people can engage with me through the book with regards to how they would like to look at product and that kind of thing. I'm always available to converse on different topics related to the same thing within the book.
Great. So, Farayi, thank you so much. It seems that we're out of time right now.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure, and it's so good to reconnect with you after a number of years. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway today is that there's a whole world of opportunity in informal markets. And I think really right now, my eyes are even wider, although I think I could see it already. Yeah. But the way you've described it, using technology to create insight, aggregating, building this book that actually is almost like a blueprint that people can use either at sort of a business level or an individual sales rep level, clearly demonstrates your passion and interest in this space. And I can't wait to see where this goes over the coming year, wishing that this book sells really well.
Thank you.
That you keep sharing the wisdom and the insights that you've learned around how to make the most out of the informal markets across Africa.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and for the opportunity just to talk about the book and talk about, the informal market. I think
absolutely
there's so much more to go for this.
Great. So thank you so much for joining us for this conversation with Farayi. It's been a real pleasure having you here as our audience, and really we're looking forward to catching you in the next one.